Thank you very much for being there. It's the end of the afternoon, almost. So usually it's not that crowded. I'm really glad to see so many people around me. My name is Nicolas Rigaud. I'm working for a company that is called Aldebaran. It's a French company, and today I'm going to talk about the future of personal robotics. I'm going to do some demonstration, but don't expect really this talk to be highly technical. The idea is more to highlight a big trend that is going to happen, that has already started, but that is going to become more and more important in the years to come. The other important element, from my point of view, is really to raise awareness. It's going to be focused on our products and the robots we are doing, but keep in mind that we are not the only company working on robotics at the moment, and that almost everybody is trying to follow the same path at the moment for programmable robots. So it's going to be focused on our company, but it's worth for the whole system. So our company is Aldebaran Robotics. This is the CEO, the ex-CEO who created the company 10 years ago. His name is Bruno Maisonnier. The company was founded in 2005. We have 4 offices at the moment around the world, in Tokyo, in Paris, where is the HQ, and in Boston, Tokyo, and Shanghai. We have 400 employees at the moment, something like that. For those who are not familiar with what we do, if I can click on this, I get a small video that should show you what we do and the robots that we have. One is pretty famous now. This one is called Pepper, and it's in use in Japan in shops. So this is the graphical interface we have to program the robots. And this is the second robot we created, which is about 1.5 meters, and that is called Romeo. So that gives you an overview of the different robots that we have at Aldebaran. I guess that once you've seen this video, one of the questions that comes to your mind is, why are we doing that? Because obviously you're not meeting robots in your everyday life or seeing them around you so often. So that's a legitimate question, that why are we doing this? And is it serious for a company to make robots at the moment? So I'll start answering this by asking, what is a robot exactly? If you try to look at Wikipedia, which is usually a good source of information, you'll find that a robot is an automatic mechanical device. So it means that lots and lots of things are robots. This is a robot, an industrial robot, but this automated door, could be considered as a robot because it's making autonomous decisions on when to open or close. And the Roomba, the robot that cleans your floor, is also a robot. But that's an interesting example to stay on the Roomba. Because when you try to look at the hashtag that people associate to Roomba, you can see that robot is not an important hashtag. So you don't get the feeling that you have a robot when you buy a Roomba, for example. On the other hand, if you try to make a research on Flickr, for example, but it works the same with Google Image, and you just type robot, what you'll see is this as a result. So it means that when we talk about robots, we tend less to focus not necessarily on an automated system, but rather on the design and the shape. That's what makes a robot at the moment. So you can see that the form factor is really important for people when they think about robots. So that's what we decided to do. We decided to create humanoid robots that look like us, and we are pretty convinced that soon you will be able to find them everywhere. What is interesting is that they mix at the same time the digital world and the real world. For once, the digital world is not limited to a screen where characters are going to be displayed, but it's really a device that is going to be able to have actions on the real world. Why are we doing that? Because we think that interfaces have changed over time. We started with this, then came this, and now we even have touch screens. So designers are talking about a shift from command line interfaces to graphical user interfaces or natural user interfaces. And when we talk about robots, usually what we try to do is to say that this is the ultimate interface robot. This is a device that you are just going to talk to. It's something that everybody knows how to do. If you try to remember how it was hard for grandparents at first to take advantage of a mouse and to understand why when they were moving the mouse, the little arrow on the screen was moving, it means that you need to learn in order to use tools. What we are trying to achieve with robotics is really the idea that you don't have anything to learn, that the charge is on the side of the device. He has to understand exactly what you are meaning, and you don't need to say the exact word so that the robot understands. He needs to understand whatever the words you are choosing. So interfaces are changing. That's basically what I was saying, but it's still hard for some of them. It's still hard for some of us to get used to all these interfaces. So with robots, we get this feeling that with this humanoid shape, technology tends to disappear, and people get the feeling that not that they are talking to human beings, because obviously they can make the difference between a human being and a robot, but at least they don't get the feeling that they are talking to a device. I don't know if you ever tried to talk to Siri, for example, on your phone. I mean, apart from testing it, that's kind of awkward and weird to speak to a phone. It's not really natural. You're not expecting the phone to answer back and so on. With this kind of device, this is something that is completely natural. You don't think about, is it strange to talk to him? No, directly, that's the first thing that you do. To give you a small personal example about that, I started working for Aldebaran about 3 years ago. And the first time I took the robot back home, I took it off the case. And by that time, my daughter was about 3 years old. And she just looked at it, took his hand, and she said, "Come on, I'll show you my room." So for her, it wasn't a device. It was someone, not like dad and mom, but someone with a character, with a personality. What is interesting is that it means that most of the focus is on emotion on our side. We are trying to make emotional robots. And what is an emotional robot? In fact, there's a difference for us between this that you've all seen. It's impressive, but it's not emotional. You don't feel anything when you look at that. Oh, that's a great dog. But on the other hand, this is not impressive, but this is emotional. You immediately understand. So that's really an important point for us. It means that we don't focus on performance, on a robot that can carry heavy load or do things like that, but really on the emotional part. To give you another example of what it means, robots that moves us, that's a small video of one of the women who's part of our developer program when she received for the first time her robot. So it should launch.
Doctor! Oh my god, he's so cute.
It's not turned on. It's completely off. And
hello, little boy.
That's interesting, the way with her finger she's touching his face. You can see that it's not like a regular device. She's paying attention to him. So that's the thing that we are trying to do, robot that moves us. And we do that, I was kind of explaining it, but through mirroring. Obviously, if you try to find someone that is close to you, it's more on the robot side than on the toaster side that you will feel a connection. So that seems really simple and stupid, but that makes a huge, huge difference. The shape of the robot is why we get the feeling that he is human. And that's something that we try to do with all of our robots. These robots are, of course, autonomous, else they are just puppets if you are always behind them, controlling them. So we make autonomous robots, and the way we make this is using apps, just like on phones and things like that. At Aldebaran, we are creating the hardware, the software that is running on the robot, but it's really a platform where you can extend the capabilities of the robot through apps that can be downloaded and installed on the robot. At Aldebaran, the OS we are using on our robots is based on Linux, and it's called Naoki. I'm going to give you a brief quick explanation of how it works, or how we are trying to make it work. There's a real-world context. I had a lot of questions since the beginning of Devox about artificial intelligence on the robots. Is there any artificial intelligence on this one? Yes, but not necessarily the one you're thinking about. No, the robot is not going to have a new ID by itself, something coming from nowhere. it's not going to happen at the moment. But what we try to give to the robot is some contextual intelligence. We want the robot to be able to understand the situation he's involved in and take advantage of this. So we have this real-world context that the robot is going to be aware. This real world is sending information to what we call a contextual artificial intelligence that is fed, of course, by application. It means that in this situation, do I have an application that fits with it and that I could launch in order to make things better? And if it happens, it's executed directly on the robot. So this is really a simple representation. If you want something that is a bit more technical, the input services that are going to help the robot understand the context around him will be, of course, speech recognition, but it can also be locating sound or things like that, facial expressions on people's faces, face recognition. There's a difference if I know you, if I ever saw you, and if I never saw you before. And people perception. Are people trying to engage with me? When the robot is seeing someone, it doesn't mean that this person wants to interact with the robot. So this people perception fact is important. If I see someone, I will, for example, try to catch his attention. If he passes away, then I let go, but not passes away. If he doesn't see... Sorry. I hope you remember this talk for this. So if he doesn't pay attention to me, that's fine. If he pays attention and gets closer to the robot, then we can start something else. So the idea is that we always have a lot of services that are running in the background of the robot. The navigation engine, for example, the dialogue. The robot is always trying to keep his balance. So these services are running in the background. Then, depending on the context, the robot will have suggested suggestions or suggested activities that will come from the ones that are installed on the robot. And then, among all that seems relevant in this situation, he will try to use or launch the one that seems to be the best one at this specific moment. Then we have all the output services that the robot can use, the text-to-speech, the LEDs on the eyes and around the head, the sounds, animation, different things. He can also connect to other devices and use different services that could be installed on them. Just to give you a quick view of, oh, how come you don't? Okay, so I'll try to do it from here. So this is Choreograph. Choreograph is the software that we are providing for developers in order to create apps for the robot. It doesn't look like the regular interface you are using because one of the important elements that is at stake with robotics is the fact that you need to animate the robot. That's really an important element. The body language is really at the center of the experience with the robot, and you cannot just deliver an answer like yes, no, or whatever. The robot needs to convey with his body the same message as he's delivering with his voice. So this, in fact, looks like an animation tool so that you can really move the robot and do things like that. The other important element on this is that we are using and relying on boxes. So to give you an example, if I take the stand-up box, put it here, I just connect it like that. So I'll try, I'm connected to my robot, so that's fine. Then if I just push play, so he should see that he's on the back, but he doesn't. Okay, let's try to relaunch it. Let me. Okay, so he's going to do it in the end. So there are different parts in this software, of course. Here you got the box library, all the library with boxes I was talking about. This is the main plane where we are going to design the animation. And then you got different parts that you can change. Yeah, you should see you. I'm going to. So you got here the video monitoring, here the apps that are installed on the robot, and the robot view. If it works, so it was working a few minutes ago, you'll tell me. Here the robot should be able, you should see on Choreograph, it should detect my face. maybe with the light, yeah. And you can see it appearing. I don't know if you noticed, yeah. So would we be 3 in front of him? You would see 3 faces here. So it means that we've been also working a lot to give developers access to tools that make their life easier. You can decide to go really deep and start from scratch with just the hardware and rebuild everything yourself. But if you're more focused on creating an experience and relying on stuff that we can provide, we have a lot of high-level, what I call high-level commands that you can take advantage of. So this was the perception of the robot, how many people are standing in front of him. But at the moment, we also give you information easily, such as the gender of the people standing in front of the robot, an evaluation of their age that might change depending on the light. So that's still to improve. So the gender, how much they are smiling, for example. We start trying to look at how we can track people when they are nervous or these kind of things. But that's elements that you can use easily as developers and that can trigger some conditions. For example, if the person standing in front of the robot is a young lady, maybe you want to adapt the language that the robot is going to speak and make it different than if it was myself in front of the robot or a grandma, for example. So these are things you can take advantage of. Same things, if the robot cracks a joke, you can see if you are smiling or not and have a different reaction depending on this. So when I was talking about contextual intelligence, this is it. If the robot cracks a joke, I smile, and it detects that and make another joke, for example, you will think that the robot is intelligent because he understood the situation and gives you the feeling that you're kind of connected. So it doesn't mean that the robot understands everything, but it's really contextual and something that is that works in this specific context. We can have things that are a bit more evolved than this. So I have, yeah, stay like that. I prepared a small up. So it's a bit more complex, and it's not that much. We do things that are even crazier than that at Aldebaran. To explain you briefly what's going to happen, the robot is sleeping on the floor. So I'm using first the tactile head box that is going to allow me to start the behavior on the robot whenever I want. At first, when I click play, it's going to stay here until I do something on the tactile sensor on the head. Then, depending on the one I press, he's going to stand up, make a funny stuff. Here, if I press the other ones, I can have another animation, or even a third one if I'm using the last sensor on the head. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what you get when you do something like that. That's pretty easy. I did that in like 4 minutes when I was preparing this. So you can see here that the green is starting, so the robot will be waiting for me. So if I do that, let me just check one thing. Let you get enough sound. Okay, that's great.
Hello, Devoxins. Sorry for falling asleep, but Nicolas' presentation was so boring so far. I hope it's gonna get better now that I'm in.
So that's pretty easy to do, and you see how movements and the behavior of the robot, the body language, make sense. When you see him scratch and so on, I immediately heard you starting to laugh and things like that. So having something where the robot is just standing and making a joke, what's the point with that? Or the richer the experience is, the richer the design you create for your application is, and the more interesting it is for the user. Then, so I was talking about the head, for example, I can do.
Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy.
So.
Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy.
I did that quickly, but I could.
Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy. Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy. Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy. Won't you stop tickling my head, please? I'm not a toy.
Okay. So,
Won't you stop tickling
yeah,
my head?
stop. An interesting point on this example is that you can see how boring it is and how stupid it looks when it's repeating exactly the same thing all the time. So this is also one of the things we are trying to provide is we have a dialogue engine, I'm not using it here, where you can create some randomness in the answers that the robot is going to give. Maybe the second time I'm touching the button on the head, it could be, okay, I already told you once to stop, please stop. So creating diversity is also another element that will give this feeling of artificial intelligence, let's say, on the robot. So this was to give you an example of how we can create apps for the robot. You can make things really more complicated. It's a shame, I shouldn't do that, but if you look inside the boxes, well, this one doesn't open, we'll take another one. Stand up is not the good one. Let's take this one. Okay, you don't want to. You don't want. Well, what I'm trying to show you, it's gonna happen. No. Okay, I can show it. Anyway, behind it's mainly Python that we are using inside of this software. Now is mainly based on Python and C++. Anyway, I wouldn't be there. Okay, I know why I cannot show you because the screen, the window, is on my screen and not on the other side. So, up, as you can see, it's Python. I don't know if you know that it's Python, but trust me, it's Python. But of course, we have SDKs that we provide with this robot and a Java SDK. So as Java developers, you can have fun with the robot. Another important element that I'm going to give you right now is that these tools, Choreograph and the SDKs that we have, were really just given to our clients until yesterday. Since yesterday, on our community website, these tools you need to register for free, but these tools are available for free for download. So if you want to play with them and see the kind of thing that you can create, even without robot, working with the small simulator. Oh, you can see two people in front of him at the moment. Just working with the simulator and trying to check what the SDK look like. That's something that you can easily do at the moment. Another element is whatever you do, since it's the same OS that is running on all of our robots, whatever you do with this one, works with the other robots that we have. So, this is it for this. Now, back to the presentation. Okay. So, the way our software works, you had this presentation, up, artificial intelligence, up, up. So, the use cases, that might be one of your questions too. What do we do with these robots? Well, basically, we wanted to create this new species that was called companion robots. When I was saying robots where we focus less on performance than on interaction, this is completely that. A good comparison would be, it's like a pet. I mean, a cat is completely useless, but you like them and you have one home. It doesn't perform any task, it doesn't do anything for you. You do things for him, it's even worse, but you like them. So we hope it will be the same with robots, except you don't have to take them out once or twice a day. So we wanted to create these companion robots, but nobody was really, 10 years ago, everybody was focusing on smartphones and all these new technologies, and nobody was really paying attention to robotics or humanoids. So we started selling robots to people who were interested in buying them, because we need to make a living at some point. And the first people who came and were interested were basically research labs, robotic research labs, and universities. But we started having schools also buying the robots because they discovered that it was interesting to have the robots inside of the school and to have the kids working with them. They don't play with the robot. They use the robot as a tool, usually so as to teach STEM-related topics to kids, so science, technology, engineering, and math. what I discovered is that working with the robot made kids good for teamwork. They are problem-solving oriented when they start doing this kind of thing. This enhances their communication skills, and they have better engagement inside of the school. Once again, these are mainly words. So to give you some kind of testimony, this was in England.
Well, when Now first came to the school, it was just a shock. When I found out what it could do, I was really amazed.
They're cool. Yeah, they're cool.
So Now presents to schools, really, if you like, the future of robotics that's really here now. It's not just for the area of IT, it's for science, technology,
engineering, maths, computer science, psychology, any subject you could think of. There's a role for Now, isn't it?
Would you like to work with me again?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Cool.
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 The biggest limit on these things really is your creativity. Best thing about work.
Oh, sorry. Anyway. So in schools, that's what they were saying. Basically, it was STEM-related topics, but step by step, we are trying to transition also to a platform that can be used by more teachers to teach foreign languages. He was talking about psychology, for example, but we can think about a lot of topics that can be taught or learned thanks to robots. Going down the ages. I don't know if I'm clear with that, but we started with robot research labs, universities, and we go down to schools. And the younger the kids playing with using the robots are, and the easiest the apps must be. So at first they were using the robot to learn how to code. So they were really using choreograph and writing code. But if you want them to, learn foreign languages, the idea is not that they are going to code anything. So they need to use apps. We realized that and started working on an interesting project for special educations, and more specifically with autistic kids. That's not something that we started by ourselves. It's a university that bought some robots that started doing this, and we found this so interesting that we decided to partner with them, hire someone or a team that was really dedicated to this topic, and work with them. So there are different approaches. I'm going to talk about ours at first, but there are other approaches that may be interesting. So Ask Now was for autism, something with kids. I don't remember exactly what it stands for. But what we are trying to we want to make sure that in the classroom, the robot is not supposed to replace teachers, because they are not going to teach anything by themselves to kids. And kids need humans to work with them, autistic kids. So what we're trying to do is not to have the kids just playing with the robot, but doing playing educative tasks. And we designed kind of interface that the parents of the kids and the teachers can connect to and monitor the progress of the kids. So it's really a tool in order to help them enhance their communication skills. If you're not used to autistic kids, usually they have communication problems, and it's really hard for them to read emotions on faces, for example. So it's really hard for them to engage with humans. And we found out that working with the robots, it's the face, apart from the lights on the eyes, doesn't change. It was easy for them to connect with the robot. So what we created is really a set of applications that the kids can play with, and where parents and teachers can monitor the results. But there are other ways to use robots in order to help these kids. And the second one was using the robot as a puppet. It may seem like the simplest use that you can think about, but you got a setup like this, where the robot is connected to a computer, and you got a kid talking to the robot. And we had this nice story where a mother, for the first time, heard the voice of her kid, because he felt comfortable when he saw the robot, and he started talking with him. So there was someone in another room typing the answers for the robot that the robot was saying. The kid was answering back to the robot. They had the feedback in the small room, and they started working with that. So that was really a nice example to know that this kid never talked to his parents, and that they were able to hear his voice for the first time thanks to the robot. So more and more people are using the robot as a puppet. And the other use case is to use the robot as a pupil. It means that the robot is not teaching these kids anything. The kids are in charge of teaching the robot something. And this is really another interesting approach because it means that for these kids, in terms of self-confidence, for example, this is really changing the way they are behaving at school. Instead of being the one who are taught something, they are the one teaching something to someone else, and that really makes a difference. So we got these three different approaches for special education. I've been focused on the autistic kids, but we have examples also in order to help kids with glycemia or these kind of things. So special education is also an important market for us and something where we think that robots will really make a difference. Robots in shops and in retail. So this robot is Pepper. SoftBank is our main investor. They bought 95% of our company last year. And Pepper has been designed specifically for SoftBank and is already in use in shops in Japan, interacting with customers. So the idea is not to replace the salespeople that you can find in shops, but rather to help them and provide a different level of services to different customers. At the moment, they, to be honest with you, have a really simple usage of the robot. He's mainly dancing for people visiting the shop, and that's enough to generate, the fact that they have this dancing robot. When they released them in Japan for the first time last year, they told us that even if the robots are just dancing, so many people were interested to see them that the amount of traffic generated, of additional traffic generated in shops and the money spent by these guys was enough to refund them for the investment they did in our company, to give you an idea. So it means that there's a big difference between our previous market and this one. This one is really focused on the return on investment. They don't feel, having robots in shops, if these robots are not providing anything, what's the point? So at the moment, they really need to perform a task. And what can they do in shops? Well, first, they can greet customers. See that on the hands. They can recognize them, not necessarily just with the eyes. That can be other setup that allow people to be recognized by the robot. You could have, for example, something that they scan on your phone so as to recognize you, but at least they can connect with who you are, understand your taste and things like that so as to propose content. They can also promote stuff with the tablet where you can display or whatever, and they can also guide, they potentially can also guide customers inside of shops. If you think about a supermarket, you don't know where the salt is. I'm not sure that anyone would pay for a real human being to be there and assist you, but the robot could completely know where each product can be found and drive you to that place quite easily. So at the moment, what SoftBank is doing is mainly using the robot to generate traffic and do some dances. I think that this is not an advantage that they will keep once robots get mainstream, but the idea that it can be connected to your CRM system, for example, or to other software that you are using can make it something completely interesting and worth investing. In France, we have also an example that has been where now has been used. He's in shops. I don't know if you know them, but it's called Darty. So they are selling high-tech product and things like that. And the robot was used for Christmas in order to demonstrate how the Philips light bulb could be interesting for customers. So the robot was standing on a table. People were passing by. He was trying to catch their attention. When they were coming to him, he was asking what was their favorite color. And depending on the answer, he was changing the light bulbs around him, explaining the product a bit more, before passing the person to the salespeople so they can conclude a deal or something like that. So it's really a business approach, but their idea behind that is also that they have to face a lot of competition with online shops, and so they want to make sure that when people visit them, they also buy, so as to generate income from retail shops. So 2 examples, but that makes sense. Also, another use of the robots can be in entertainment. So it can be a robot dancer, and I think that I have once again a small video. So if you know her, this show was created by Blanca Lee, who's a famous choreographer, and you can see it at the moment in New York, for example. So they were just thinking on how they could include robots inside of a dance show. You can also find robots as stand-up comedians. Once again, I got a video.
This robot is Data. He's a nav robot.
So what's going on, Data?
He performs on stage. There's times in which he's tracking the audience response, so he can change up what kinds of joke he's telling and learn over time what maybe gaze means or how to navigate an interaction on stage. So I'm actually reframing or placing the stage as a social robot user study in which each and every member of the audience is acting as a data point for machine learning. Performers are human professionals of artificial emotion and personality, and I think that they have a lot to teach us as technologists about how to make more effective machines that are in our everyday lives.
Today we are going to talk about the gulf between art and science.
This idea that you can get machines to do something that makes life more enjoyable, that we can actually connect to, and that can also communicate with us on our own terms, on human terms, allow us to access some of the added value of technology in our
Okay. So as a robot, as a stand-up comedian, we also have a TV show in France that is using the robot in order to do interview and things like that. So that's a lot of work, but that's interesting to see that people that are less interested in return on investment are also using these robots and trying to see how they can take advantage of them. One of the last use cases that we have at the moment is robots at home in order to take care of people. I think that it was pretty obvious since the beginning that robots can be good entertainers, that they can be fun, that it's cool to talk to them and things like that. But that's not all that you expect from a robot if you want him to take care of your parents or grandparents. So we are also trying to have the robot as being a butler. But the butler doesn't mean that the robot is going to do everything by himself. I talked about it during the 2 last days, but sometimes people ask us, will the robot be able to clean the floor, for example? Will he clean the floor for me? And we think that it doesn't make sense because it would be stupid and hard to try to get the robot to mimic us to clean the floor. So the use case for us when we talk about a butler would be, let's say that I have to leave for work in the morning. I'm going to talk to Nao and tell him, Nao, tonight I'll be back home at 6 tonight. Please make sure that when I come back home, the floor is clean and the windows are closed, for example. And he's going to connect to my Roomba, because I don't want to talk to my Roomba. We already talked about that. So he's going to connect to my Roomba and make sure he cleans the floor I asked. And he's also going to connect to my home automation box, for example, in order to make sure that the windows are closed. So what is interesting is that at the same time, the robot can control other devices, but it could also be controlled by other devices. And I'll keep this example of robots controlling the home. I don't know. I think it's the case here in UK, as it's the case in France. You are not allowed when you are driving your car to make a phone call. And what is strange is that you cannot make a phone call, but you can still talk to the people that are sitting next to you in the car. And the reason for that is that when you're talking on the phone to someone, since this person is not there, it's a big cognitive load where your brain has to represent the person you are talking to in this situation. So that can be hard, and that's why it's forbidden to drive a car while talking, because you're losing concentration. Let's say that my grandmother is at home. She's in my home, which is automated. At some point, it starts raining, and so the windows are closing automatically. And my grandmother, for some reason, she's sitting in the living room, and she doesn't understand why the windows start closing. She freaks out. She doesn't understand. Like, she's locked inside. She don't know. So let's say that I have this sensor on my window that is detecting the rain. He's going to understand from that he needs to close the window. But maybe he can also send a message to my robot, and the robot is going to look at the window and say, oh, it's raining. I'm going to close the window. And so you will attribute the will of closing the window to the robot. It's less scary because someone is doing it. So for my grandmother, if the robot tells her, okay, it's raining, I'm closing the window, and they close, it's easier to understand than just the window being closed kind of magically. So the robot controlling other devices, if I ask him, or being controlled by other devices in order to pass me information, is something that really makes sense in this context. The other point will be the personal assistant. There was this kind of fantasy, like my grandmother is at home, she's falling on the floor. I don't know if she's dead or not, but the robot will be able to help her. That was really a fantasy, because if the robot trying to help my grandmother being on the floor falls on her, it might be even worse than the situation at first. So based on that, we are trying to adapt the strategies robot could use. For example, he could just come close to my grandmother if she's still conscious and try to see if she can, use him in order to get back on her feet, for example. If she's still conscious, but she cannot do that, maybe the robot could be used as a phone. So he would call someone and my grandma can talk through the robot. And if she's on the floor and unconscious, the robot could immediately call the emergency. But you already have devices like that. For example, belts that are going to monitor that your grandma is still walking and not on the floor. The problem with these devices is that you have positive, false positive. I don't know how you say that, but false positive? Okay. So what is interesting with the robot is that, let's say that the signal is sent that there is an emergency situation, people could connect to the robot and see through the eyes so as to remove the doubt. So this is an important element. They can also adapt the answer they are going to provide. If my grandma is just lying on the floor or if there's blood everywhere, I guess it's not the same kind of team that I'm going to send to rescue her, for example. So this is an important element. Personal assistant, it also means that, for example, you all know, I guess, all people who have dementia. And there's someone visiting them, and you can see on their face that they are trying really hard to understand who is that person and trying to remind it. So, for example, you could have something like that if the robot knows all your relatives. We have someone who tried to work on a proof of concept with something like that, where you just have to press on the hand of the robot, and he's going to tell you who's the person in front of him, as long as he already recognized or he's already studied his face. So it means that, he could tell me, hey, this is your grandchild visiting you, his name is Nicolas. And so this is interesting because it's kind of enhancing the quality of life that these people could have, lowering the, the stress that they can feel in situations where they get the feeling that they are not completely in charge and deciding what's going to happen. So that was really to present you the different use cases that we've been working on so far. The idea, to conclude this, is really to say that robots at the moment are no longer something for the future. Yeah, I know you're not seeing them on a daily basis, but it's no longer just a fantasy or something that you can see in books. Robots are already there and they're waiting for you. I see on the timer that we have 8 minutes left. So it means that if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I think that there's a tool for that. I don't know if you used it. How come I cannot move it? Okay. So I don't know if you're using it to post questions. Is it the case? Someone posted question on? Nobody? Okay.
How much does it cost?
Good question. And classic one. There's the approach where I give you immediately the answer, and I say it's between 7,000 and 8,000 euros to buy one. There's another option where I'll be telling you that 2 years ago it was twice this price. So step by step we are trying to lower it. The interesting question behind that is that, robots are really expensive at the moment, and the only way for us to be able to lower the price is really to industrialize the process. You have hundreds and hundreds of companies. You have each week a new Indiegogo or Kickstarter project for a robot to be funded and so on. And many people are doing that, but they basically come with proof of concept. What we managed to do at Aldebaran, thanks to SoftBank investing in our company, has been to industrialize the process and the manufacturing of the robots. When I joined 3 years ago, all the robots were built in our office in Paris. So that's why you had such a price. It was 15,000 by that time. Last year, we managed to produce the robots in China and to cut the price in half. So we hope at some point to reach a price point that would be around 2K. Pepper, the other robot I was showing, was announced yesterday on the Japanese consumer market. You get different options to buy it, but the cheapest one is the robot for 2K. So step by step, it's going to be, I guess, this kind of acceptable prices. Yes?
Roughly how many of these robots have you sold already?
So if we talk about Nao has been sold at about 7,000 copies, but it's a product that has been created 8 years ago. So it means like something about 1,000 copies sold each year. For Pepper, the other one, at the moment we haven't sold so many of them. I would say something like 2,000 of them in 1 year. It's not that bad, but with the launch of the B2C in Japan yesterday, they also announced that they would have a production that would be about 10 to 20,000 units a year. So it should become more and more important, but we are not talking about millions at the moment. So it's really an emerging business. Yeah?
You talked earlier about recognizing faces and gender and things like that. How does it know that? Is it a bit like a passport biometric, for example, for the face, and especially the gender part?
Good question. I'm afraid I'm not smart enough to answer it. But I'm smart enough not to lie to you. So I can try to provide you an answer for that. Not necessarily just now, but I can easily connect you with technical guys. Honestly, I don't know. And it's still something that needs to be improved. At the moment, gender is pretty easy. But for example, for face recognition, if you have a beard, the robot can recognize you. If you don't have it, it is going to think you're someone else. If you wear glasses, if you remove your glasses from your face, is lost. So it's still something that needs to be improved. But the results are not that bad at the moment, to be honest. For the gender, no, he's automatically telling you what is the gender of the person in front of him. But how does he know? I don't know.
If you go onto Google and you search for eigen faces, there are techniques to sort of spot certain points on the face, measure them, and use them as inputs into like learning systems. So you can say, oh, when the edges of the eyes are about by here, and the edges of the lips are about by here, and the nose looks like it's about by here, then on my training set, 80% of the time it was a man.
For gender, I don't know, but I think that for age, they rely on eye wrinkles. That's how you say that?
Yes.
So I think that's what they use. But light has an impact. I was talking about that. It can change for a few years. But the idea for us is not to make sure that we know your age exactly. It's enough for us to know that you are below 10 or above 70 or around 30, for example. We don't knowing that you're 33 doesn't make a big deal, a big change for us. Yes?
I'm not sure we said at the beginning, but I noticed you had the cable plugged in. How long does the battery last?
On this one, yeah, I'm keeping it charging all the time because I don't like when the battery is failing in presentation, and I know that I cannot completely rely on what is on the screen. But usually, with this new version of the robot that was released a year ago, if you use the robot a lot to keep dancing, for example, the battery won't last more than 45 minutes. On a regular use, you're going to go up to an hour and a half. But this is now. If we talk about Pepper, that was one of the constraints that SoftBank put on us when they came and asked us to design Pepper. They wanted to use it for a full day in shops, and they don't want to recharge it. So it means that for Pepper, we have 12 hours of service when you're just on battery. But we don't have legs, so we can stack batteries where the legs are. For now, we have just a small battery that is here. And the challenging part is that if we want to have, for example, a bigger battery, that could be really quick in terms of design to do that. But the fact is it's going to have an impact on the balance of the robot and things like that. So it's just more than just changing the battery. It's almost redesigning the whole product, if we want to enhance that. So this is a good point. What I'm going to give you as an answer is something we are working on. It's not available at the moment, but we started redesigning this part in order to have two connectors here. When I was talking about the fact that we want you to feel that the robot is a companion and not that it's a device, when you see him plugged like it sends you back to the fact that it's a device. So we changed this part with two connectors, and what we are trying to do is a chair for the robot, whereby just sitting, the connection in the back, he would start recharging, and you would still get this feeling that he's sitting just like a being. So that's what we try to do and implement at the same time a navigation system that would allow him to know that if I'm here, I need 5% of battery to go back to my charging chair, and if I'm here, it's going to be 10%, and so on. So that he never runs out of battery, but that's what we'd like to do at some point. Another question? Yeah.
How much can it be customized, like color, size, level?
At the moment, the color is we just have two colors for the robot: blue and red. We haven't invested so much time and effort in offering people ways to personalize their robot. On the other hand, we really can sense that there's a real need from customers to personalize their robots. We can even see that at Aldebaran inside of our office, just because we have two colors and there are so many robots around. To know which is your robot among all of them, people tend to put stickers on them. So you have cat robots. Mine, for sometimes, had a nice mustache, for example. So we have developers that have been working on knitting clothes for the robot, for example. So he's got shirts or things like that. That's funny to see how people want the robot to look like someone they know and be different. But that's something that already exists. I mean, when I'm changing the photo on the screen of my phone, that's exactly the same thing. The design will be the same for all iPhones. So if I want it to be mine, it comes by personalization. We are not that much in favor of people designing clothes for the robot because it tends to overeat after that, and eating is a really issue on robots. So you could make hats, but it means also that at the same time you wouldn't have the nice feedback from the speakers. So it's finding an in-between. But stickers for us are at the moment the best way to personalize the robot. For the hardware, we haven't invested that much, and changing parts would have the same effect. Let's say that you want to remove the arm and have a arm that can do something different. If the weight of the arm is not the same, it's going to have an impact on the balance of the robot and all these things. So yeah, as light the personalization can be, the better, the lighter it is, the better for us from our point of view. But we understand this need, and yeah, we are trying to provide some solutions for the stickers or things like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So does the robot have like feedback sensors in it so it can walk up slopes and walk on thick carpet and stuff, or does its legs just do the same thing, and you just hope it's on a surface that the action works on?
Well, you're talking when he's walking, for example, or this kind of thing?
Yeah. So say in your programming thing you tell it to walk forward.
Yeah.
Can you tell it to walk forward and it works even if there's like a thick carpet or a slope? Or
interesting point.
Does it just move the legs the same way?
So at the moment, it mainly works on flat environments. For example, with carpets, usually he's really bad with carpets because depending on the, not the size, the height of the carpet, then when he's moving, he tends to go deep inside or not, and so he can fall. If your question is, can I ask the robot, for example, to go 2 meters this way and stop, this is also something that we'd like to do, but that physically is not possible for the robot because you got screws on the robot, and all of them are not installed on the robot the same way. So it means that when I ask to the robot to walk 2 meters, one is going to walk 2 meters, but the second one maybe is going to have just 1 degree of difference at first, which after 2 meters result in a difference of several centimeters or something like that. So what we are trying to implement, if I ask the robot go there, for example, he's going to try to have a point that he's paying attention to, let's say this guy at the bottom, then he's going to walk 2 meters, look for this guy, okay, he's there, correct the position, do again 2 meters, look for the guy, okay, he's there, correct the position, and do that again. So at the moment, that's the best strategy for us. Then, if it's not flat, it's really hard for the robot. For those who are interested, he can also climb stairs, but the challenge for robots is to go down the stairs, in fact. So what is interesting is that with its size and its weight, you can easily, for stairs or things like that, take it under your arm and take it upstairs or downstairs. That's something that won't be easily possible with the other robots that we are creating at the moment, like Pepper, who has no legs, or with Romeo, that is definitely, how would you say that? Have more weight to carry, would be more weight to carry. But challenging. For Pepper, so that has wheels, I think that Pepper can use everything that has been designed for disabled people. So it means that if a wheelchair can go there, the robot can go there. Yes? Last question. Yes?
How does the design process go in sort of terms of getting people to interact with it as a device, or as you say, as a personality rather than a device? Sort of how do you go about getting away from some of the concepts like the uncanny valley and things like that?
So, interesting. The design of Nao is the result of a contest. Nobody designed it at Aldebaran. We organized the contest with a school, and the student who came with the design, the winning design, also came with the name. Sometimes people ask us, why is it called Nao? Because they came with the name and we liked it. So this is the first element of answer that I can give you. We have no problem with the uncanny valley, because at the moment when you look at this robot, you obviously see he's not a human. We don't plan. We just want to make you project something on the robot, but we don't want to, put you in this crazy. Also, for those who don't know, the uncanny valley is the fact that the more a robot is looking like a human, the more people accept to interact with it, except when it's looking too much like a robot, and if it takes like half a second to your brain to say, is it a robot or is it a human? Then it becomes scary. So you have lots of robots in Japan, proof of concept maybe, with skin and so on, that are really creepy to see. There's this head. The first time I saw it, I was thinking if it was, close to my bed in the morning when I wake up, I think I would just die immediately or wake up really quick. So we don't have any problem on our side with that. It's plastic, it's not skin, and we are not really paying attention to that. But it means also that the design, the round shape and so on, fits well with this idea of companion robot. If I was to use this robot as a security robot, obviously you would just have fun looking at him and be like, I don't care what you're saying. So I would have a sharper design, for example. I would change the voice if he was used for security reasons. But no, for the rest, we are not investigating. We are not investigating a lot in having our robots looking more and more like humans. That's really not the battle we're in. That was the last question. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. Thanks for the applause for a non-technical talk. If you have other questions that you didn't dare asking in public, I'll be there around, so feel free to come and see me. Thank you very much.